Welcome to Spooky Celluloid's Halloween Spooktacular. Now what's the difference between this and a regular video? Absolutely nothing. I have to edit this in one day. Good luck. Yes, today I am reviewing the 2016 independent horror film directed by Peter Romeo Lambert, Nurse Jill, and I hadn't really heard of this film before I got recommended it by the Sick on Cinema boys right after my review of Portraits of Andrea Palmer, because this was shot in 16mm by the same guy that shot that film, and you know how much of a hard-on I had for that film. Not like literally, but I mean just the look. I didn't really find the content exciting. Don't judge me, fuck off. And add to that the fact that this is shot in a seedy, sleazy, stinky-ass shithole of a city, Chicago, you know I'll probably enjoy the film. And I did. It was really good. But before going into details as to why I love this film, let's get into the story first. Now this film is about a nurse named Jill. Hope you're still following me. And during the first third of the film, we follow Jill as she does her daily routine. She's not a hospital nurse, she's a stay-at-home nurse, I guess. I don't know, she takes care of old people and shit like that. And we just follow her routine. One aspect of her routine is taking the train, which she does a lot. And little personal story, when I went to Chicago in like 2015, a fight almost broke out in the train at 2 p.m. so I can imagine how fucking sketchy it is at like 3 a.m. During that time, we also see the film's villain, this stalker serial rapist, who we see commit his first crime, and I just have to applaud how fucking creepy that scene is. The film is shot from the point of view of the killer, and the handheld cinematography and the 16mm grain just makes it so creepy, and that scene is mind-blowingly spectacular. And then we see him commit his crime. Then we go back to Nurse Jill, who's waiting for the bus or the train, I'm not sure. Whatever, she meets a young lady called Abby, and they strike up a conversation and they develop this little friendship. And they both mention that they sworn off of men. Now I know this is the Spooky Celluloid channel, but trust me, this isn't going where you think it's going. Can't just two women be friends? Yes. Well, in this film they are. Until Nurse Jill accidentally kills Abby. Think I'm gonna need to rewind and explain why she did that. Our stalker from the beginning decided that his next victim would be Jill. One night in Chicago, she gets stalked by him and he gets closer and closer to her. She misses her exit off of the train and she's a bit lost, and that's where she asks a lady for directions, and the lady is like, I don't really recommend walking into the park, you know, it's dangerous. Bitch, everywhere in Chicago is dangerous. I'm sorry, Chicagoites. I love the Cubs. And when she goes to the tunnel instead of the park, the stalker comes out and, you know, he follows her until she gets to her house. But on the train she had called Abby, so Abby will show up to her house at the same time as the creepy stalker. So when Abby enters the home, she thinks it's the stalker, so she stabs out the eye off of her good friend Abby. We kind of knew, due to a scene where Nurse Jill talks to her psychologist or psychiatrist, that Jill is a bit strange, so her reaction to accidentally killing her friend is to put her body in the trunk of her car, Abby's car, and go drop her off in a swamp. So not only did she commit murder, she also committed Grand Theft Auto. When she goes to drop off the body in the swamp, that's where the film kind of takes a strange ass left turn. She gets knocked out by a piece of wood and she wakes up with bandages on her face and missing fingers. And that's where the film shows us that she was kidnapped by this strange fucking family with two kids who are just adults who really like to walk around and swing their dicks around. When Jill takes off her bandages, we can see that she's been disfigured, and when the mother of the two man-child walks into the room, she asks questions, and the lady is like, oh, you've been in an accident, there's no hospital around here, so, you know, we took care of your face for you. That's never a good thing to hear. You don't want your surgeon to be a bunch of inbred hicks. And the reason why that family disfigured Jill is because they want to offer her as kind of a sacrifice to Grandpa, except Grandpa won't be eating her. He'll be eating her out, let's just say that. But this was all a very strange, very weird, very creepy nightmare, and she wakes up in the swamp like nothing happened. However, this is not the end of Jill's misfortune, because the creepy stalker is still a real dude. So he creepily stalks her, and then does the deed. And then the film goes from the perspective of Jill to the perspective of the creepy-ass stalker. We see he clearly has mental issues, you don't say, and he kind of just spends his days walking around, creeping and stalking women, and eventually doing a little bit more than that. However, he still gets a date with his upstairs neighbor. This is probably the most unrealistic part of this film. If this creepy-ass asshole can get dates and I can't, there's clearly a problem with the script and not my own personal issues. Yeah, I think I should maybe start, you know, taking responsibilities for my failures. Nah. And on their date, they start to get handsy, until, well, our creepy stalker dude, well, who didn't take his meds by the way, goes full sicko mode and tries to choke our lady to death, and she pushes him away. Our creepy stalker guy, who by the way his name is Stuart, not to be confused with the rat, goes down to his apartment and starts, you know, crying or doing some shit, I don't know. It's hard to have pity for such a piece of shit, but he's sad. And that's where Jill comes back to take her sweet revenge. She puts him to sleep, goes into the bathroom, and then we hear a gunshot. And we see that the lady that he first assaulted is sitting in the kitchen with a gun in her hand. So she decided to also take revenge. It's like the Bermuda Triangle, but for ladies taking revenge on Lil Stuart. Anyways, they make it look like a suicide and the film ends. Hey, it's the morning after. I didn't like my original conclusion, so I'm like, fuck it, let's do it again, but I still have to put out this video today, so I'll make it quick and I'll try my best. So I haven't discussed this film's main gimmick, I'd say, yet. It's a silent film. Yes, a silent film made in 2016, complete with the dialogue speech bubbles. And it's an interesting concept, however, I think at the end it hurts the film because it makes the 73-minute long time feel a bit longer than that. However, everything that has to do with what comes with a silent film, like the visual and the music, are impressively amazing. I think I've praised the visuals enough in Portraits of Andrea Palmer. This is just as good, except most of the film happens during the night, so you get even grittier, even sleazier, even scummier looking imagery. And at the same time, the music slaps, except maybe the dialogue scenes, which go on for too long, and the music during those scenes kind of sound like elevator music, you know, a little doom, 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 doom. You're just like, oh, I have to read a lot now. I don't mind reading. I mean, most of the films I watch aren't in English, but I mean, in this context, it's slightly different. And since, you know, it's a silent film, the actors need to be more expressive, which they do a good job at that, except maybe a few of the cast, but the main cast, like Lil Stuart and Nurse Jill, do a great job, and you really feel their emotion through their movement. Do I recommend this film? It's hard to, because the fact that this is a modern day silent film is gonna put off a lot of my audience and a lot of the audience in general. However, if you don't really mind more experimental films, this is a pretty good one. It's not as good as Portraits of Andrea Palmer, but it's not really in the same vein other than the visual aspect. So if how I describe it sounds good for you, you'll probably enjoy it very much. Other than that, see you guys next week.